Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to the most exciting session of the day is the panel discussion on the topic Beyond 2021, a turnaround. Before I start the session, let me introduce you to our moderator. So our moderator for today is Mr. Sunil Godbole, Chairman, Expert Committee, Steel Day 2021. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. And before we proceed with today's panel discussion, I will quickly introduce you to our expert panel members. Our first panel expert is Dr. Tapan Chowdhury, who is working as President, Power and Resources with Tata Consulting Engineers Limited, which we commonly know as TCE. Dr. Tapan has got more than 35 years of experience, and in his current role, he is taking care of customer relations, sectoral growth, innovation, sustainability, and quality within Tata guidelines. He provides leadership and guidance to a team of subject matter experts and young engineers in the field of iron making, steel making, rolling and finishing, power, hydrocarbon, and chemicals. Dr. Tapan has also authored 25 articles which are published in IE and IEEE. Welcome on board, Dr. Tapan Chowdhury. Our next panelist for today is Mr. Siddharth Mishra, who is the Chief of Sales and Marketing of Tata Steel Tubes, which is a special business unit of Tata Steel. Mr. Siddharth has a rich experience of over 26 years in various functions and divisions of Tata Steel. He started his career in operations with bearings division of Tata Steel and then moved on to sales, marketing, and business development functions. He has led regional sales teams of tubes and steel division in Tata Steel and have served customers in B2C and B2B environments like automotive and construction. He was also a business head of Agrico and Retail Initiative Special Business Unit of Tata Steel with P&L responsibility. Welcome, Mr. Mishra, to the panel discussion. Our next guest or the next expert is architect Ruchir Panwar. Ruchir, an eminent architect, is the principal of E3+A Designs LLP. He has international professional experience in design and planning of hotels, software technology parks, airport, healthcare facilities, signature buildings, and sports facilities. He has been the group head of the design of some of the renowned super specialty hospitals, cargo terminals, traffic control facilities, software technology facilities, cricket stadiums, SEZ, and industrial parks. Ruchir, welcome to today's panel discussion. Our next expert is Mr. R. Kannan, who is the corporate advisor to Hinduja Group. Mr. Kannan is an expert in finance and strategy. He has more than 30 years of experience with various corporates like Tata Consultancy Services, PwC, ICICI Bank, and Hinduja Group, where he has worked with them in various capacities. He is an expert in the field of corporate finance, treasury management, corporate strategy, organizational restructuring, corporate performance management, mergers, acquisitions, and business development. He's also a visiting faculty in leading management schools where he's sharing his rich experience with the students. And last but not the least, our last expert on today's panel discussion is Dr. Prakash Rao, who is the Deputy Director and Head, Energy and Environment, Symbiosis Institute of International Business, which is a part of Symbiosis International University. Dr. Rao has over 36 years of experience in the field of energy and environment management, with keen interest in climate change, energy, and natural resources management sectors. It's amazing to know that he has already published 85 research papers, notes, and chapters in peer-reviewed international journals and books, including several articles in magazines and other print media. He has also helped many corporates as a consultant in the field of environment research and management. He has also done a phenomenal work in the field of environmental sustainability. Dr. Rao is also a deputy editor of an international journal on agricultural resources, governance, and ecology. So far, I've written 4 books, with the latest book on environmental impact of tourism in developing nations. This book has been published by Global Publishers, United States. And Dr. Rao also happens to my guide in my PhD journey. So welcome, Dr. Rao, to this expert panel discussion today.
Thank you.
So before we start with Dr. Tapan, let me explain the theme of today's panel discussion, which matches with our Steel Day theme, and that is Beyond 2021, a turnaround. As I was saying in the morning inaugural session, we are at halfway stage of 2021, and gradually we are trying to come out of COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, this is the right time to start preparing a roadmap for the structural steel industry in such a manner that we not only look at the remaining part of 2021, but also start looking beyond 2021. We call this roadmap as a turnaround for the obvious reasons that now we need to think and act very swiftly to rebound the situation. While preparing this roadmap, we'll have to map the opportunities in such a manner that we together are able to build a sustainable business model for structural steel. Now with this, I would like to request Dr. Tapan Chowdhury to start with his presentation.
Thanks, Mr. Godbole, for a nice introduction to all of us. And thank you so much to all the other co-panelists. I'll just share my screen. Thanks and thanks. So thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to interact at this juncture. Because this is actually, as I've been given by Godbole, that we are in a midst of certain sort of era where we'll find that we have been caught unaware of certain things. You know that this pandemic, although we are a little worried about in all corners, but it has taught us a lot of things. That how we can actually prepare ourselves for tomorrow. Everything was unknown. Just think of 1 year back, 2020, around March. Even the scientific organizations like the world today were just were not being able to figure out what is to be done. But the thing what we are talking today, most of the things are known to us, but are we ready for tomorrow? So that is the theme of has been nicely put by Mr. Godbole, and I think our co-panelist also will touch upon. But in this context, I will touch upon where actually I've spent my whole life, that is the engineering fraternity. We know that the demand, economic situations, everything is going. We are all trying, all the nations are trying to be a developed nation for India to become by 2030 or 2035. Now, what we are going to do as an engineer, that are we ready for that? Are we becoming more innovation in our approach for the engineering solutions so that the use of the steel can be really optimized and can be maximized? The graph what you are seeing, the steel consumption, it shows that any developed nation, there is a different trajectory takes place as far as the steel consumption is concerned. But now the time has come for India to take that trajectory. So in that trajectory, we must look into how to reimagine, how to reinvent, so that the growth can take place to our desired level. And resilience is one of the factors we have to really keep in mind while going ahead. I'll just divide the whole thing for the purpose of the discussion. That if we really want to do the project cost, schedule, and all the upcoming large project within the time, within the cost, we have to go for some sort of a modularizations, use of new kind of steel structures, and our friends architects as a co-panelist will elaborate that how the environmental friendly structures can be built in an architectural form. And then while doing all these things, we must embrace digitalization so that we can have a minimum rework at the project side, and we can really compress the project schedule, because number of projects and the economy will be taking a total turn, and we have to abide by certain rules and regulations, and we will be able to embrace those growth paths. We'll go to the next slide. We'll give you that another important criteria which is giving us a little sort of a botheration for the engineering fraternity. This BEAM, adoption of the BEAM, as far as Indian context, we are finding that unless we adopt the BEAM in a proper way, both from the governmental regulations as well as from the private guidelines, we may not be able to do all these activity on time, on cost, and on optimizations. I'll just show take a few minutes look how the world looked like. You can see the map. The whole world has already adopted the BEAM, and they have a criteria that go for this so that we can really do the project on time and within the cost. So we have to take that, we have to embrace it. Our engineers have to be ready to adopt it, and we have to make them ready. This is our job, and we have to take that in our mind to go for the tomorrow. So let us go back to my original slide. These are some of the structure we aspire to be. Some of the structure we have already created. And these are the things actually will be helping us to do the project. And for that, our friends like the Tata Steel and some of the steel companies, and Siddharth is here. So there are certain things they are already ready to roll in their factories. But now as an engineer, I have to also be ready for engineer and use those products properly in our engineered projects. Now, another way of looking the things, when the pandemic came, you know that we were just trying to build some sort of a hospitals very quickly. You just see, the steel became only the handy material for us. And we created those in a very short term. You can imagine 120 days hospitals being created by use of the steel. So it not only becomes it is an imperative, but it is actually we have to go for this more and more steel structures, more and more modular designs, so that all the projects can be conceived within the right time frame and within the right quality. So we'll go back to the next slide. This is also some of the things which is actually used, and it is some of the things which are already we are doing the design. And this may be looking that it is for tomorrow. No, it is already today. So we have to invent a lot of things like this so that modularization, containerizations, and all these things can be taken forward for the large project like National High Speed Rail and all these projects which are being already ongoing, and the government is taking all steps to use the steel in more and more. We'll go to the last slide. This is a little bit of thinking slide. You just see everything is on the upswing. We have ongoing trends. We have all the climate change, everything is in place. We have environmental product materials. So now the engineer has to work. We have to prepare our next generation ready with the smart tools to make them ready so that the mindset of completion of the project on time with quality and the cost optimization can take place. With this, I just stop sharing. Thank you, Mr. Godbole, for giving this opportunity. I'll be here for the panel discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Chaudhary, for an excellent presentation. Now we move to Siddharth. Siddharth, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Godbole, and my fellow panelists, Dr. Tapan Chaudhary, Dr. Rao, Mr. Pawar, Mr. Kannan. It's an honor to be part of this esteemed and distinguished panel. And Dr. Tapan Chaudhary has made my task very simpler. He has very nicely presented, how steel is such a wonderful material for construction. So my presentation is about the future opportunities Dr. Godbole mentioned, we all have just passing through unprecedented global pandemic, but the future is bright. And I will share, since I am from a business background, I take care of marketing and sales, so I have to talk about rupees crores opportunity also. So, Carol, can we go to the next slide? Yes. So, despite this pandemic, the government of India's infrastructure spending is on track. In next 5 years, the government has announced investment of over 1.1 lakh crores rupees. And the major areas where this investment is going to happen is in airports. Government has planned to set up 100 new airports by 2024, and this will require an investment over 1 trillion crores. Metro rail, we all know that government plans to have 25 metro station rails in 25 cities in next 5 years. Railway, a lot of expansion work is happening. The redevelopment of stations, dedicated freight corridor, I think which is going to be a game changer in India. High-speed rails, we already know about the Mumbai-Ahmedabad project. Then the next big focus area is cold chain. We all know, and we have realized during this pandemic also, not even for our agri-produce, but also for our pharmaceutical and medicine need, we need cold storage. Many medicines like Moderna or Pfizer cannot be used in India because we don't have cold chain. So this is going to be a focus area. We all must have read in the news, government allocated around 23,000 crore rupees on health infrastructure, and I'm sure that some of it will come in this cold chain also. The next big focus area is on the drinking water mission, which is called Jal Jeevan Mission, the pipe drinking water for everyone in country by 2025. And huge money has been allocated for this, over 2.87 lakh crores. We have also seen some good orders from state governments like Uttar Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh. They want to expedite this project. And housing, we all are aware, the Pradhan Mantri's Awas Yojana, which is both for urban and rural. It has also a very ambitious mission of housing for all, and massive investment is going to happen in this area also. So overall, the India is planning to have massive infrastructure spending in next 5 years. Can we go to next slide, Karen? The first slide was about government spending, but we have seen that even in private sector, a very ambitious capex plan have been announced. And I will start with the warehousing. It has grown by over 44% CAGR in last 3 years, and similar growth is expected in next 5 years. We have seen the plans of Amazon, Flipkart, and many other logistic companies entry of global players. So this area is going to see a massive growth. Telecom, we have just seen 4G revolution. Now countries prepared for 5G, and there also massive investment plans are there. I know COVID has made one very important change in global supply chain. Because of the geopolitical risk, many countries have decided to de-risk their dependence on one particular country. And now opportunities are emerging in countries like India, Vietnam, Southeast Asia. Pharmaceutical is one such industry. We are going to have major investment in India, and India has potential to become a global pharmaceutical hub. The next is on industrial part. Our own company, steel sector, it has announced major investment plans. Government of India has a mission to reach 3 million tons of steel capacity in India by 2030. Today, we are at around 125 million ton capacity. So almost 3 times growth is planned there. I'm very happy to share with all of you that Tata Steel's board has also allowed investment of over 60,000 crores rupees in new steel plant, which is going to come in Odisha. We are also investing in our downstream facilities, which will world-class tube mills with advanced products. So similarly, other steel players have also announced expansion plan. Refinery, this is also a very focus area. We are going to see massive investment in this sector. Last but not the least, I think everybody is talking about green energy, environment, the sustainability has become the focus area, and more regulation is going to come. We have seen what has happened in Europe, USA. There are, carbon neutrality is the target for all countries, and we are going to see massive investment in this sector also. The last thing which has government has taken policy initiative is this PLI, which is production link incentives. This is for initially announced 13 identified sectors, and this is also going to demand for massive investment in construction and infrastructure. Can we go to next slide? So, well, we have seen what is government going to do, what is private sector going to do. I think very important to see how steel companies are geared up for this opportunity. So as I mentioned that we are going to invest, this steel sector is going to invest over 60,000 crore rupees in next 5 years, including capacity expansion in downstream. Just to give an example, globally, if steel demand is X percentage of 100 million tons, then the tubular demand will be 10% of that. So if India has to be 300 million tons and almost 50% will be, so steel tubular demand will be over 20 million tons in next 5 years. We are investing a lot of money in technology on development of higher strength grades. The larger sections, 400 by 400, with Dr. Tapan Chaudhary will realize it was not available earlier. Now it is available 400 by 400, such large sections with 16 millimeter thickness kind of thing, which we have supplied in many projects. The strength of the material, we are pioneer in YST 355 in India. Now we are working on E450 kind of material also for Indian construction industry. The third focus area is on coatings. We all know that corrosion is such a big concern for all the structural engineers and the planners. While galvanizing has been the traditional method, we have also working on new technologies like graphene. Graphene, as you all know, is a wonderful material. It has corrosion resistance of almost 6 to 8 times over conventional galvanized material. Aesthetically, it looks beautiful. So I'm sure Mr. Ruchir Pawar and his ilk, they will be very happy to use this material, and it is going to change the way we do construction. Sustainable material. Again, environment is the focus area. We know the issues with the traditional construction material, concrete and other, they have environmental concerns. I'm very happy to share that Tata Steel has 2 products in country, which is like the rebars and hollow suction, which are both Greenport certified. The last focus area, and which is what Dr. Tapan Chaudhary mentioned in recent pandemic, and I will just share this example with all of you. When the COVID hit, initially the Kerala was one of the worst affected states. And when the Kerala government approached Tata Groups, so Tata Steel, TCE, Tata Consulting and Tata Projects, we came out with an isolation shelter in just 120 days. And it was only possible because of the design ingenuity of engineers and the versatility of the steel. And this is the way forward. We heard in the opening session that then hospital was built in China in 1 day, 10-story hospital was built in 1 day. That's the way things are going to happen in India also. So what we have decided, we have created a vertical in Tata Steel. It's called Services and Solution. It is working in the areas of modular construction. So we have Nestin is the brand name of that. It is for isolation center. It is for water ATM, water sanitization, and a lot of things can be done with this. I think this is going to help in developing the ecosystem for this construction sector. So we are quite positive about the future, Dr. Godbole, and we believe the next decade belongs to India and next decade belongs to steel. Thank you very much. That's all from my side.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Chaudhary, for giving us a very positive outlook for the future. Your slides were so energetic. It filled us with a lot of energy. What you can say, it's a kind of a second jab of Covishield or Covaxin, so that we come out of the COVID environment and straight away we hit the shop to start producing or manufacturing the steel. Thank you very much. Now, I take this opportunity to invite Ruchir. Ruchir, please proceed with your presentation.
Yes, sure. I'll just share my screen. Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so I've tried to keep it as simple as possible because, in making slide presentations, one has a tendency to talk a lot more. And I think the focus should be on discussions in the panel. So I'm just trying to give a snapshot of what is there and what I feel should be the focus of the steel manufacturing and all the other partners in the entire industry, all the other stakeholders. So the salient features of the industry, which actually is not as per local studies and research and estimations, it's based on what the world has looked at in terms of what India can do. And most of it is already covered by Dr. Tapan Chowdhury and Siddharth. So I'm just going to go through it quickly. India's steel demand is supposedly going to rise by 19.8% in 2021 alone. And this is as per World Steel Association calculations. This is going to be the highest growth rate amongst the top 10 consuming nations. India is currently the second largest steel producer in the world, and we've also become the second largest consumer of steel in the world as of this year. And the demand of steel, demand for steel rather in our country is largely untapped because our per capita consumption of steel is way below the global average of some 232 kgs. So there is a lot of potential, and as Siddharth rightly said, the next decade belongs to India, and it belongs to steel. I hope that really, really happens and soon, because in our country, implementation is a little slow. But yes, we always get there. The focus sectors that I identified immediately, which is what I feel as low-hanging fruit, is that you have a lot of metros which are ongoing. There are ongoing metro projects. And then they are in continuation for the next 4 to 5 years. And Siddharth also mentioned 25 cities are going to have metros. And we have close to 1,000 kilometers of rail systems, of the metro rail systems, which have to be delivered. The government has promised on that by next year. So in 1 year itself, there are close to 700 metro stations. So metro, of course, has a combination of concrete, steel, and various other materials, but the stations in themselves primarily use a lot of steel, and the roofing systems and everything. And they also give a lot of opportunities for, using greener technologies and smarter technologies, because you need to manage the individual station as well as collectively the entire line. So there is a lot of possibilities over there, and how to integrate it with the IoT systems. It's being looked at various levels. Hopefully we should be getting into that. And I think the steel industry needs to embed themselves into these discussions, because sustainability otherwise is just going to be discussed by everybody in parts, and those parts won't come together and become a piece of a larger puzzle. The second immediate sector that I had identified based on my limited knowledge is the warehousing segment. It has been estimated to be $12.2 billion as of the last year, and it's expected to increase to $19.5 billion as of 2025. So in the next 5 years, it is going to go by $7.3 billion. And there is, of course, a gap in the warehousing segment. While cold chains have always been woefully inadequate, and people look at it as cold storage facilities rather than cold chain. The cold chain means that there has to be anything which is a perishable good has to have a documented process of handling from the origin to destination. And that is what the cold chain really means. So it is basically strategic location of facilities which actually relay like a baton being passed over from relay runners. It's like that it moves from origin to destination. And that's something which is entirely missed in our country. So that is something which is going to be there. But as COVID has, and we are all aware, made it absolutely imperative that technology be the driver of almost every service that we provide, and more so in terms of essential services, which you would require. So technology-driven supply chain, which is basically direct to customer, and that needs large fulfillment centers. So you're no longer going to have just a generic dry cargo-based warehouse facility. It has to be something which has got to be automated. It has to be integrated with technology again, to manage not cartons and pallets, but individual articles and individual items. And that will be there both for the pharma sector, it will be there for the e-commerce sector. It's going to be across many FMCG sectors as well. So that is the second thing that I had identified. Now, the most important is, how do we respond to all this? Are we going to keep doing it the way we have been? And I loved Dr. Chowdhury's presentation, because he's touching upon innovation. And that is what is really the need of the hour. We don't have to keep pushing the same old systems just because that's where all our production and design capabilities have been concentrated in the past. We need to look for newer solutions. So it's much easier to look at a PV structure for a warehouse solution, rather than actually start from scratch, rethink the whole thing, and then develop a more appropriate solution and set the benchmark for the rest of the world. You know, that's the only way we will be able to grow our own in-house technologies. And that is why I feel that it has to be India specific. And we need to have a collaborative approach, because fine, I may be an architect, but I'm by no stretch of the imagination going to be able to understand production related issues of a material, the design related issues which arise out of production related issues, limitations and stuff. And I'm just going to be, looking at things in terms of planning efficiencies and design aesthetics and whatever, without having the wealth of knowledge acquired by all the other stakeholders in the whole process. So it has to be through a collaborative approach, and which is again something which Siddharth has touched upon. And that is why, I mean, they use the services of TCE, Tata Steel, and I don't know, TCS, probably what he mentioned. But 3 of their companies put together under one umbrella could turn around an isolation center in 120 days. I was talking 3 years ago about design-build solutions of off-site volumetric construction methodology, where you could build a hospital or a hotel, in roughly 160 to 180 days, including all the substructure, which is right from the basements all up till it's completely finished. So I think that's where we need to go ahead. We are miles away from China, so the comparison is actually futile. And it's not even worthwhile in our context. We need to leapfrog and use technology to leapfrog all the other intermediate stages and reach the goals which are specific to our country. But we need to identify it collectively and find solutions collectively. That is all. Thank you very much.
Ruchir, thank you so much for such a crisp presentation and a lot of insight for today's discussion. I hope that Mr. Siddharth Mishra has noted few points from your presentation, and we will be talking about that once we move forward. Now, I would like to request Mr. Kannan to proceed with his presentation.
Yeah.
Mr. Kannan, over to you.
Dr. Godbole, my co-panelists, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all of you. In fact, my earlier speakers, they brought out the detailed applications of steel going forward. And as of today, I'll just go through the presentation. I'm not able to move. Yeah. not able to move the slide. So what we see today, we see renaissance across the world, and liberal stimulus given by leading countries in the world to their industries. And they are also focusing, one of the ways of stimulating economic growth is through infrastructure development. So that is what, if you go to US or if you go to China also, they are all talking about stimulating the economic growth through infrastructure development. So we see that world economic growth is improving this year. It's likely to be very, very high. Although last year it was down. And countries with small population are fast in administering vaccines. Today, whenever you talk in a panel of whatever may be the subject, one of the issues which people talk about is this, what is happening to COVID and how fast people are being administered vaccines. One good thing is that we hear about more and more new vaccines are coming to the existing vaccines, which will make us, not only India, but all over the world, we can vaccinate almost everybody very fast compared to what we thought we could do. The large companies have been, and one more thing during this pandemic, all of you must be reading the quarterly results of large companies in India. We find that actually they improved their performance. Even if the top line has not gone up substantially, they were able to reduce the costs, reduce the cost of operation, reduce the cost of travel. I was reading an article where a company like TCS saved more than 2,000 crores on travel in 1 year. So they reduced the debt, mainly steel industry. If you see, of course, Tata Steel, they went and reduced a lot of debt and more than 28,000 crores last year. And this year, Tata Steel is likely to reduce 7,000 crores. So the steel industry, which was struggling 3-4 years back, somebody asked the question why the prices are going up. Why the price is always depends on demand-supply equation. So the earlier presentations clearly brought out that in India, steel demand is going up. So obviously, the price will catch up with the demand. But whenever there is no demand, there is also stress to sell. So large companies are more efficient. And now, private sector, last 3-4 years, they reduced their capex, they stopped their capex. Now these companies are again looking at spending money on capital expenditure, which means a lot of construction projects. And as it was brought out, India, we have infrastructure pipeline. More than thousands of projects have been identified by the government. And one of the sectors, two sectors which I think I didn't find in the earlier presentation, one is this blue economy, where India, we want to be a leader in the blue economy. So we want to build more ships. We want to make India as a shipbuilding nation. As well as we want to give a lot of thrust to development of blue economy, ocean-based business, and similarly port-based industrial development. And one more area where we will find a lot of demand which will come is industrial corridors. There is 5 or 6 industrial corridors at the national level. And even within each state, there are 5-6 industrial corridors within the state. So they are all going to create a lot of demand for steel. So India will regain its growth momentum. Now already it started picking up now. But next year, India will be the largest economy growing, the fastest growing large economy in the world. Now we are talking about new business models. The companies are talking about new business models. And of course, structure, when you talk about steel structures and all, people have started talking about using light structures. And more focus on supply chains and nearshoring. And all these sectors where the opportunities there was clearly presented in the earlier by earlier speakers, so I'll not elaborate. Atmanirbhar Bharat is there, the PLI scheme is there, pharma industry is there. So all that is going to create a lot of factories and hybrid working models. So we will find, and people who are having a 1-bedroom apartment, they want 2-bedroom apartments. Those who are having 2-bedroom apartments, they want 3-bedroom apartments. So they want to kind of set up an office. In fact, I arranged a talk for students by CEO of TCS on last Sunday. The way he spoke, 95% of coding going forward will be done by machines. So now, so that is what is going to happen. So we will have hybrid working models, which will create a all new demand in the housing segment. The new infrastructure products I told you, new application of steel, like the China example which was shown. Since our requirements are very large, even housing shortage is very large. Maybe if it becomes commercially viable, of course it is from China as of today. So they built a 10-story structure in 2-3 days time. It was all due to that steel structures they have. So we can build even 20, 30, 40 stories where it can be done within 10-15 days. And we can save a lot of money of that 1-year construction period where the working capital is locked. And plus, I believe the strength of the steel which is being used there was much, much superior compared to our present technologies of building. And the steel outlook, it was already discussed, so I'll not take much of the time. So this trade growth in 2021, that is across the nations, exports and imports and all that, that is likely to be at 8% and next year at 5.6%. This is as per Economic Intelligence Unit. This is their latest report as of this month. And we know global value chains, again, they are regaining now. So they are likely to be back to $18 trillion, which means the trade will pick up now. And 2020, actually the consumption fell marginally 0.7% to 1.88 billion tons, whereas China's consumption increased by 8.5%. So they consume more than 1 billion tons, but I was happy to hear, according to your projections, 2025, India will be consuming 3 billion tons of, not 3 billion, 300 million tons of steel. So China's steel consumption will increase 3%. And like I told you, US also will see a good steel demand. So going forward, since most of our countries have drawn up plans for infrastructure development, we'll find at least the next 3-4 years, steel industry will continue to do well. And the output is likely to rise from 1.86 billion tons to 1.97 billion tons. And India has, I need not elaborate, it was clearly brought out. We will see a good demand for steel going forward. That's all what I wanted to share, and thank you for the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kannan, for providing us with great insight, not only from engineering or architectural point of view, but you talked about other sectors also where steel can be used in a big way and how we can give the boost to the economy moving forward. Thanks a lot. Now this brings us to our last expert panelist, Dr. Rao. Dr. Rao, you may please proceed with your presentation. Once you are done with your presentation, we will start with the discussion on the topic.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Godbole, and I think it's been an immense delight to hear everybody so far. And I think perhaps I'm the odd man out here as a non-industry person coming in as an academician, and perhaps maybe a foot in the industry, I would say, still, because we are into a sector where we closely work with the industry, and perhaps therefore I will give you a very different perspective of our approach, and rather I would say as an institute which focuses on energy and environment, and how do we see steel and how do we see the way forward. So let me just share my screen very quickly. I hope you can see my screen now.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so what I would do is then run you through about 2 to 3 slides in terms of the sustainability aspects of steel and perhaps what one should be really looking at for a sustainable future. Some very broad directions, that is what I thought I would share with the panel here, and perhaps later on a few questions around it. So, give me a minute, sorry. I think my slide is not going down for some reason, just a minute. Yeah.
Use the
Yeah. So I just wanted to briefly bring some points to the panel here and maybe the audience in terms of steel sustainability and growth. The first thing is, and I'm going to be very biased towards energy, environment and sustainability, obviously, in terms of what we are talking about today. And the good thing that I felt was when I heard all the 3 speakers, or rather 4 speakers, almost each one of you had a common thread in terms of picking on the important aspects of energy, environment and sustainability. So that was a good point and a good pointer for me also to kind of talk about this issue. In a sense, the global steel sector energy-based emissions is currently in the range of 7 to 8%, which means that yes, steel sector does contribute significantly in terms of emissions, which is more in terms of the greenhouse gas emissions. The other important thing that is happening at the international level is obviously the Paris Agreement. Most of us are familiar with it, and as a very key instrument which is likely to become important for the future in terms of how we drive industrial growth. So that's a starting point, a benchmark for us. There has been a lot of work going on internationally in terms of mitigating the impacts of emissions, primarily through addressing the issue of climate change, which has indirectly also put clean energy on the center stage, of which steel is becoming a very important part, something that has been already mentioned in the earlier speakers. In terms of growth, yes, we do see India as one of the biggest markets, and I don't need to emphasize this. I think all that is again come in from the presentations earlier on, in terms of why we realize that apart from one of the other big geographies like China, United States and the EU, India could very well become, as Mr. Mishra said, it is India's decade for the future, for the next decade. So that is going to be important in terms of not only the growth, but also in terms of trying to address sustainability aspects for the coming. The other point that I wanted to mention is about responsible steel, which has been a major development today across the world, including in India. So it's not as if that steel is a culprit, but obviously the steel has made a huge impact in terms of how people are already taking action in terms of creating what is called responsible steel. Now, in terms of responsible steel, it's not about just the production, but looking at the entire ecosystem of steel and the life cycle of steel in terms of what is really happening. So I just wanted to share a little bit of background, and this is very interesting, which I've taken from 2 very important authors, Brian Nattrass and Mary Altoma, who talk about where we are. And perhaps you can look at the last segment, which is talking about high integration, the point which talks about how over the years the evolution of the sustainability process has improved, ranging from how the corporates back 40 years had no response, then it became a more of a reactive response in terms of what is happening, to then in the 80s an anticipatory response, going ahead in terms of proactive response, which means that you suddenly are looking at sustainability as a profit center. And then today what we are looking at is, can we integrate sustainability as part of operational aspects of every business, including steel? So can we bring this into the center stage of steel production, is what the industry's learning curve, and it's been growing tremendously over the last few years, and needless to say will grow in the coming years. And therefore it comes to the point as to what do we think as steel needs to do in the future? What does this sector needs to do in terms of energy, environment and sustainability? Obviously the use of energy is very high in the steel sector. It's one of the most intensive sectors where energy consumption is happening today, globally, India included. And therefore power sector governance is a key aspect that we need to look at. because why I'm saying this is the power sector in India has become a very dynamic sector, and the way the changes are happening in terms of regulatory processes in India is also causing a little concern in terms of how industry needs to be part of this. And therefore the power sector in terms of the governance has to take on what I would say is certain measures which will help them to reduce the usage of power and energy in particularly the steel sector. Second point is about corporate sustainability, which is again looking at steel not just from a perspective of energy and emissions, and to go beyond it. I mean, one needs to look at perhaps the other dimensions, which is the social dynamics. After all, steel has an impact on the environment and there are people involved. So one needs to start thinking about how the steel industry could start looking at perhaps the raw material from where you're getting in terms of certain social dynamics. And this is very different from CSR, but in terms of trying to address your impact in terms of how the social resettlements could be reorganized. The third aspect is water energy nexus, which is increasingly becoming a very important aspect today. We often see energy as a very central part of economic growth, but the other side where water is closely linked to it is normally not considered. So you can either see it as a water energy nexus, water for energy, or energy for water. So for example, the thermal power industry, huge requirements of steel, yet they are one of the biggest users of water. Today when you also manufacture steel, there is a significant amount of water that is being utilized, and are we looking at that angle is something that I thought I should bring forward here. Climate change and energy development, no doubt about it, at the global level, because of the Paris Agreement, a lot of it filters down to India in terms of our commitments to the Paris Agreement as signatories, as government signatories, and therefore we need to think about it in every aspect of steel development. And the next point is about circular economy. In fact, I'm particularly keen that the steel industry needs to look at and develop this as the area for the future. Circular economy is still not caught on in India, but perhaps from what I've heard from the other speakers, the coming decade will be a great opportunity for us to look at circular economy for steel in terms of recycling. There's already tremendous amount of recycling happening in this sector, and circular economy can pave the way for trying to develop, steel in a manner in which everybody benefits, as a resource. Of course, EHS, integral element of any manufacturing company, but important in terms of resource conservation. So that is the point which I wanted to mention. And then of course, this is my final slide. And I've thought that the push towards renewable energy is where the steel industry is likely to contribute a lot. Something that was mentioned, I think, again by almost every speaker in terms of be it infrastructure, be it the metro systems, be it the corridors, industrial corridors, or be it large cities or smart cities where there is a significant requirement today. Energy efficiency, which is more in terms of energy cost optimization. The steel industry can actually reduce cost and make it a huge business case for sustainability. There is always a question of how do we reduce the cost. I mean, there was a query about why is the price going up and up. Yes, you do have an inbuilt mechanism where you can actually show by doing energy efficient mechanisms, we can actually save some cost there. Market based mechanisms, of course, that's going to be only time will tell about how these are going to change over a period of time, depending on regulations in India and globally. Of course, I have brought in an academia industry collaboration. Being an academician, I think that's a very important element where we need to get industry and academics to be working in joint collaboration. And somewhere science policy interface is critical. I think we are in a situation where today there is a lot of science around steel making, but it's sometimes not in sync with policy that is happening with the government. And sometimes the policies makers at the government level need to understand the science, and that is where I think we need to make a contribution for steel. Intergovernmental treaties, so global partnerships, and then finally sustainability standards. So that is where I think we need to make a difference for the steel industry. So thank you, and I hope we can take some questions.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. And I must tell you that the presentation was very, very impactful, precise. And I must tell you that you are not the odd man out. This is going to be the central agenda when we talk about the steel manufacturing and usage of steel in future. Trust me, the next generations are not going to touch any material which is not sustainable. So that is going to be a agenda which will be carrying maximum weightage. So in fact, I was thinking that we will start with some production things, or we'll talk about, or we'll take up a question to Dr. Tapan regarding the cost and economies of scale. But now I have changed my mind. And I would like to ask first question to Dr. Tapan Chowdhury, something like this, that sir, in your slides, you mentioned about eco-friendly manufacturing of steel. So please throw some more light on that eco-friendly steel manufacturing. And then I would like to hear from Dr. Rao that does this make sense moving forward into the future with eco-friendly steel manufacturing? Dr. Tapan?
Yes, I think very good questions, Mr. Godbole. But I think I'll give some of the replies have already been done by Dr. Rao. But I'll tell you some of the aspect what we are trying to do at this point of time, which my friend Siddharth also will collaborate. You know, circular economy is becoming a more and more one of the aspect what we are taking into this. That is one. So we are taking most of the steel industry is going towards a totally change. One from the energy intensive point of view, energy infusion point of view. That means more and more renewable energy is becoming prominent while doing the steel industry for the energy as a part. That is one. Another is carbon capture and carbon utilizations becoming the second part of the story for any of the new steel industry. Third of the things which is actually we are just trying to see how the carbon which is coming out from the steel industry can be better utilized in terms of chemicals. So that those can be better utilized or better eco-friendly kind of a thing. So that the steel actually we can talk it about green steel. We are just working in some of the Middle East project. I will not tell the name of the client, but actually the whole plant is on the scrap-based steel, which actually Dr. Rao was emphasizing on the circular economy. It is totally on the scrap assembled, and the whole steel plant, it is not only small one. This 3 million ton plant, which is taking all the scrap, and you can imagine that almost 30% of the energy is becoming from the renewable sources. So although I have a little difference with Dr. Rao, that Dr. Rao, along with that, we are also working some of the green metals. We call it green metals, which is call it copper and zinc, which is more energy intensive. There also we are putting all the renewable energy into force, so that it becomes more sustainable and more friendly. But I will not leave the question of I think Mr. Godbole, that you just see regarding the cost. I think there is something you are trying to ask, which was your past endeavor. I will give you 3 examples of the present analysis today of the people. Because you know that group what we are actually belong, myself, Siddharth, or whatever, it is not a business, it is an institute, okay? And we are here to build for tomorrow. So and we all work towards that. You can think of any construction large project. There is a 10% material wastage. There is a 30% rework. There is a 40% unproductive site work. So if we can control even 50% of that, even the amount of money which is being actually wasted, because it is all of our money, public money. So we cannot, as an organization, as a nation, as a citizen, we all actually have a chance to have innovative solutions, what Ruchir was actually pointing out, and collaborate with institute. So that we can really actually get out of this cost in a proper way. And we also build the project in a proper time. That's it. I think I have answered your question, Sunil.
Yes, you have answered. Now we move to Siddharth. The way Dr. Tapan has explained that we are gradually moving towards the circular economy or the green products, and we talk about the Tata Steel initiatives. I mean, what kind of new products you are coming up, or you already brought in the market and we are not aware about those products? Would you like to brief us on those products?
Sure, Mr. Godbole. And first of all, I was so enlightened by the presentation of all my fellow panelists. It was very thought-provoking discussion. So Dr. Rao, Mr. Pawar, Mr. Kannan, and of course, Tapanda, great presentation. So I must thank all of you. So there are two things which I would like to first, if you allow, Mr. Godbole, can I answer to Mr. Rao's concern on steel and environment?
Absolutely, because that is going to be the central point in future. Yes. And as then, I said, Dr. Rao is at the center actually. He is not the odd man out. His views are at the center. So please answer the questions which are raised by Dr. Rao.
No, so first of all, there is no disagreement between what he has shared. I think climate change or environment is not only concern of accommodation, it is responsibility of all of us. And I think we have, we are conscious of this fact, and we are working on many initiatives on this. I would just like to say, Dr. Rao, that because of the regulations in European countries and American, they are far more stringent than what we have in India today. And we are learning from our Tata Steel Europe operations. There is a negative carbon tax on steel operations of around $50 per ton kind of thing. So we know the importance of this, not only from the commercial point of view, but also from the environment. So a lot of things we are working. We also have a steel plant in Singapore. And if you know Singapore is a city nation, and running a steel plant there is absolutely, it has to be economic, environment friendly, and it has to meet all the strict regulation of that country. So what we have started, what Tata Steel in its all operation, we have zero solid waste discharge. So there is no. We are working on liquid discharge also, and we are very confident with the technology, but it requires investment, and we are working on that. The second part is that we have started and launched India's first recyclable steel plant in NCR. It is in Rohtak. And we are so happy that now Government of India has allowed this vehicle scrappage policy. So this is the push which we wanted. Now the organized players will come into the usage of scraps, and the circular economy, the steel's recyclability, it will improve. We know that India cannot have massive mega steel plants in future. We have to look for these smaller plants which are based on the recyclable material and scraps. And this is what going to help us in meeting our environmental norms. Of course, that's the second initiative which we have taken. The third part is that what I have shown in one of my slides is that the Steel Green Probe is a certification which has started in India. And we are very happy that these are our two products, which is Tata Structura and Tata Tiscon Rebar, are Green Pro certified. So we have taken a small steps. As you know, Mr. Dr. Rao, journey is long. But if we all believe in these principles, and which Tata Group is, very soon Tata Group is going to announce its carbon neutrality plan by 2030, by 2045, by 2050, what we are going to do. And you will see, again, we will be the industry first. We have been pioneer in other things, but in environment also, we are very conscious and we will take action. Second, Mr. Godbole, you asked about new products. So I think very good question. I will just like to say from my experience of serving to automotive customers and construction industry, I think the way auto industry has matured and the way it has moved up, I think we can learn something, good practices from them in construction also. Auto industry is talking about tensile strength of 1000 gigahertz kind of thing, 1000 MPa. We are 980, 780. And in construction, we are struggling to convince architects and engineers and, to use 355. It's the other way around. It's like you have a 5G network and you are asking customer to use it, but he's very happy to, it's 2G kind of thing. So that's the gap. That's one point. So we have this YST 355, which we have launched in India for the first time. Many our projects, like airport projects, they are using it. The second thing which we have done is on increasing the sizes. So 400 by 400, which is also the first time in India with higher thickness. So 16 millimeter thickness up to we can we can produce, and we have supplied in one of the very AIIMS project in hospital project that we have supplied. So first is on the strength. Second we have in the sizes. The third area which we are working on, I mentioned, is on corrosion protection. So graphene I shared in my slide. So graphene coating is one of very important part of thing. Fourth action which we have taken is based on the feedback on aesthetics from people like Mr. Ruchir Pawar. They are our the softer part, how to look at the aesthetics and the beauty part. I think we have learned from them. So earlier we were only having circular hollow sections or square or rectangular. Now we are coming with beautiful hat profile. So we have taken this initiative. It is available. I just saw one of my distributors. They have shared in Goa how this hat profile is used in one of the bungalows, which is restoration work is going on. So next time when you go to Goa, you can see Tata Steel's hat profile there. The fourth part, which is I think Mr. Ruchir was sharing, Tapanda was saying, and Mr. Kannan, the collaborative ecosystem. And that's where we have realized the innovation is not there only in products, but it has to come in solutions also. Right. So this entire construction solution, which I gave you example of COVID isolation center in Kasaragod, where TCE, Tata Projects, and Tata Steel, we work together. So we are coming with this water ATM. Water ATM is ready to use, construction small unit, which are used by many corporates. Then there is EV charging station. So we are supplying this ready to use structures and to our customers, and these solutions are available. So I think these are the 4 or 5 areas where we are coming out with new products and new solutions. I hope I have answered your question, Mr. Godbole.
Thank you very much. Very nice explanation, Siddharth, and you have cleared most of the points. Now we move to Mr. Kannan.
Thank you.
Mr. Kannan, you are an expert in finance. Now, I'm just taking the point which actually Dr. Rao has explained to us in the presentation, that how important it is when it comes to international finance. Now, would you be able to guide us that what will be the significance of sustainability in future when the international companies, they start financing any steel manufacturer or the project or a developer or any kind of infrastructure project? What kind of importance they will have in their mind while financing the project?
Yeah, one thing which is happening is this ESG, correct. Environment and this governance and all that. Like it was mentioned by my earlier 2 speakers, Dr. Tappan and Mr. Siddharth. I think Tata Steel has taken a lot of lead, and I think they are the lead coordinator for that. I forget the name of the organization, CDP. It is called CDP. So financing, that is one part. Second is, when you talk about international finance, especially concessional finance, generally it is being given to large projects implemented by government. As I was mentioning, many of the large projects have to be implemented by government only. So we have institutions like, in fact, in India is the largest borrower from World Bank. India is the largest borrower from Asian Development Bank. India is the largest borrower from Asia Infrastructure Bank, that is based in China. India is the largest borrower from New Development Bank, China. So we have borrowed. These are all funds. And similarly, for this industrial corridor project, as well as that project between Mumbai and Gujarat, you are aware, the DMIC industrial corridor, JBIC, the Japanese institution, they are given at a very, very concessional rate. So the best way to mobilize funds for such large projects is through infrastructure, that also through government funding. But coming to steel companies, association, and people coming together and all, there are commercial banks which are really looking at such good projects, or leading banks in the world like Citibank, Deutsche Bank. So all these banks also, if they mainly look at commercial viability, and as and when you have a project which is viable, then they can also look at funding. And one more area which you can look at is now what is happening, these pension funds. So as of today in the world, $20 trillion of funds are carrying negative interest. So that is all that money is trying to come to India. So we have a lot of money around the world. They don't know where to invest and how to earn money. So if for the steel companies like what Tata Steel has done, they are able to showcase to them that they are environmentally friendly, they are adopting the best practices, they have a lean management system, they are most competitive manufacturing practice. All that if they are able to convince, it is easy for large steel companies to attract funds from abroad at a very, very reasonable rate. I don't know whether Tata also have tried that or not, but usually these institutions directly give it to government. But pension institutions, they started investing in what is called alternate assets. They started investing in startups, they started investing in large companies where they want to increase the yield so that they can give pension to their people. So Canadian Pension Fund, Australian Pension Fund, all these funds are looking at. So there are many sources available. So just we have to see that what is that they expect. And if borrowers are able to convince that part, then it is easy to raise funding. Thank you.
And I trust that they must be monitoring also once the project starts, whatever sustainable initiatives which you have shown in the project report, whether you are following those things or not, they must be monitoring that, is it not?
Yeah. So World Bank has got a private sector funding arm called International Finance Corporation. All right. Again, they have lent to the maximum money to India. So actually they have a framework called Corporate Governance Framework. So whenever they give money to companies, what do? They see the performance of these companies, put them in the corporate governance framework. And now they said that they will not, they will slowly stop funding companies which are not adhering to ESG compliance. So they have a framework. They will certainly monitor. It will happen.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Mr. Kannan, for explanation on the international finance and its link with the sustainability. Now we come to the core topic, Ruchir. As a designer, we go back to 2019. Thought process was X. Now in 2021, what is the thought process when it comes to design of buildings, design of structures, particularly keeping in view the 1.5 year which we are lost because of the COVID-19 pandemic?
So, the key focus even before we went into lockdowns was to integrate technology into the building design process and the execution and delivery processes. And right from designers' ends, which is new BIM softwares or BIM compatible softwares, which were integratable down the line with other design disciplines and then construction. And that's how the 3D became 4D and the 5Ds and the 6Ds and the 8Ds. All that it had already started. The only thing is that the industry adoption is always a little poor. And that's simply because everyone is looking at it purely from their own convenience and from their own frame of references. That's why I identified at that time, when we were doing large format, industrial parks, SME parks. And we found that while we were pushing a lot and asking people what are their CAD platforms and 3D modeling platforms, they didn't have their answers. In fact, they were just, picking hashtag and putting things together. It became a lot of stress on us because I've been focused on sustainability since my college days. And I've looked at it in a totally different way. In fact, there was a phrase coined by Sir Edmund Hillary, who used to keep traveling to the Mount Everest, and he realized that the Earth's ecosystem is fragile if one species decides to not follow it. So, and he saw it because in 10 years of degradation on the same trails, mountain trails, which were pristine, he just couldn't believe what was happening. So he called he coined a phrase called eco-logic. And it's ecological is just eco-logic. Every species has been responding to nature and in response to nature will develop a lifestyle and a system for the, living, procreation, death and regeneration in a cyclical manner. This circular economy is a Western phrase which has been coined now. We've been practicing it for donkey's years, for millennia actually. 2000 odd years we've been practicing it. The unfortunate part is again that the circular economy, now we will be implementing the Western model. And of course, because of the economic pressures, as Professor Kannan just said, that, they are the ones who hold the purse strings. So they call the shots. So they make you comply. This US leads GVC, and it doesn't really, you don't need to tick the boxes. That's one approach to sustainability. The other approach to sustainability is to really see the result. When you see the end result where there is clean water flowing down the stream, which earlier was murky and was being polluted with industrial waste, yes, then the factory next door is practicing sustainable manufacturing. If you see, trees growing where land was getting degraded, then yes, the social infrastructure here is doing in sustainable living. So you can only check your checks and balances is the reality check of what is happening at the end result. We talk about renewable energy, and I'm telling you, it's another whole conversation of how solar is not really a sustainable energy solution. It can be called clean, but the cleanest is actually water. Electricity has zero byproduct. It's just that we again followed the Western model of making mega plants and having huger and huger dams, which inundated ecosystems. Forget about land and whatever. It just inundated ecosystems and changed ecologies literally in a year. So that was the problem. Nobody talked about micro turbines. Nobody talked about rapids. Nobody talked about, the whole efficiency comes at the smallest level. You'll find the highest efficiency in nature is in ants, bees, insects, which are very, very micro. It is not with the elephants and the whales. They don't have efficiencies. You can't talk about efficiency. They just barely manage to survive. You consume such huge amounts of energy in order to just be mobile and to move and be around. So and that's why there is a limit to their sizes. Otherwise, they would have gone growing, unhindered. So I'm taking nature's examples because that's the natural environment. You can't have a sustainable, living, humane environment without having a context and a relationship with the natural environment. So all our learnings have to come directly from there, and all our impact, which is to our immediate environs, is what we have to really focus on. So that's where you need to do, and technology, of course, is going to be part of it. Immediately, we need to take baby steps. So first is bringing in efficiency in the current manufacturing process, simultaneously investing into innovation. Innovation then brings the products that you've been innovating over a period of a couple of years to an application which you've already identified today. So you're innovating not in the dark, but it is specific to a solution where there is a solution required today. And that way what happens is all your investment of energy, time, resources, is going to bear fruit consecutively over a period of time. So there has to be first set your goal. Once you've set your goal post, then make your roadmap, and then take the most efficient roadmap to it. And you have to realign because there will be extraneous circumstances, COVID being one of them. There could be some others, but you won't lose focus. Here, what's happening is any new trend, carbon credits. I mean, I don't hear about carbon credits anymore, but that was such a huge, misleading thing where people invested millions of dollars in carbon credits, and it was being traded as currency, as an alternative currency. And I found it was such humbug. So I think circular economy is a focus. We need to just dumb it down for ourselves and simplify it and understand it in plain, simple terms. It just means every manufacturer of every product has to have a complete life cycle responsibility of that product. That's it. That's all that it means.
Excellent, excellent, Ruchir. Wonderful explanation. And I think we can go on and on with this session. There are so many questions, but now I would like to touch base on the important question. We have Dr. Tapan Chaudhary, who is an expert in most of the areas of steel, starting from manufacturing to, let us say, innovation or digitization or guiding young engineers. We have Dr. Rao today on the panel, who is an expert when it comes to sustainability. We have Ruchir as a person who is representing design fraternity. We have Kannan sir representing finance. And of course, we have Siddharth representing the sales and marketing division. So let us now, what we need to assume is all of us, we are a part of a team who have been asked to make a roadmap for structural steel in future. And I would like to request everyone to speak for at least 2 minutes that these are the points you should consider in your roadmap, if at all you want to have a successful turnaround, and if you want to go with a U curve or V curve, whatever our finance experts they call. And whenever you are going with speed, also be cautious about certain things. So I would like to request, starting with Dr. Rao, to guide us that these are the things which all of us should consider, or SSMB for that matter, should note it down very carefully so that in future, when the roadmap is down for the structural steel industry, starting with 2021, these points are addressed and we move ahead with great speed without too much of worries. Dr. Rao.
Thank you, Mr. Godbole, and I will keep this very short because I think I would definitely like others to speak on it. I think I just wanted to comment on what others have spoken, particularly Ruchir, and I think he echoed my sentiments in terms of stating that the fact that we need to look at the natural environment is extremely critical in terms of what we do. So in my own submission now, I think when you're looking at beyond 21 for the structural steel industry, all I would say is we reiterate this whole new approach to what is called responsible steel. There is already a lot happening. And I think Siddharth Mishra has very rightly said that whether it's the Tata Group and many others, they're doing tremendous work on this area. But obviously going ahead beyond 21 would mean looking at it even further to reduce our dependence on the natural environment. I mean, steel is omnipresent. There is no question about it. We are going to consume more and more steel in the coming years as part of the growth, whether we like it or not. But I think there is a lot of scope for us to look at it in terms of the natural capital. I mean, I'm really trying to say that we always look at it from an asset. I mean, any business looks at it from an asset-based creation. But we also need to look at the natural capital that needs to be considered in the future approach to steel making, in a sense. So once you're starting to look at it, you look at it from the energy, water, and all those aspects. So I think that is my take in terms of the future.
Yes, so what I take away from your guidance is the green capital can become one point in our roadmap for structural steel in future, right? Siddharth, please, you can share your thoughts on how do we go ahead now from here?
Yeah, so thanks. So I will just again come back to two things. I think first issue and first is that India need world-class construction, and world-class not only in terms of technology, but also sustainable. And as Ruchir mentioned, each one of us has to take responsibility of our product life cycle. I think that's very important. That goes without saying. So how can we, create Indians need and deserve better quality product, better construction technology, better construction material. So how can we achieve this? Why it is not happening? One is we don't have the entire ecosystem aligned to it, right? From academician, if you talk to any civil engineer, BTech, they have not learned how to design with say 355 grade kind of thing. They are not aware of the hollow sections kind of thing. I was recently interacting with some young graduates, and I was, very disappointed. Their textbooks syllabus has not been revised forget about the green technology, what Dr. Rao is mentioning. Even they are not aware of the basic thing. Then we have to discuss with the enlightened bunch of designers and architects like Ruchir and his fraternity, who can influence their clients to use such steel kind of thing. Of course, government, I have seen a lot of positive things are happening there. The regulators, the policy makers, they are aware of India's need, and there is a welcome change. And what we can see that more can be done there. The fourth part is the fabricators and the issues regarding the small medium enterprise, how to make them part of this entire ecosystem. And fifth, of course, is steel companies have to come out with more and more products, wider choices, and the related technologies. I think if we can take care of the entire ecosystem, then only it can be taken forward. Thank you, Dr. Godbole.
In fact, I have one question for you, which can become an integral part of this roadmap. In fact, it has been asked to Ruchir, but according to me, you should answer that particular question. The question has come from Mr. Rane, and he's asking that there is a high level of social acceptance to RCC buildings. Now, how do you break that mindset in order to move forward when we talk about the steel structures?
Yeah. So again,
other than Ruchir, I think you can throw more light on that. That how can we do that in future?
So again, it's again about the awareness kind of thing, and the entire thing. If I will take an example from a different field. A few years ago, India there was high acceptability of the caste system and the dowry thing. It doesn't mean it is good for us, kind of thing. I think the awareness is missing. The people in the smaller cities and the entire ecosystem. Again, I'm coming back to that. RCC has some advantages, but steel has, we have seen what are the advantages over the conventional material. So I think that has to be taken forward. We have to make awarenesses there, and we have to see more and more examples. We have seen some of these things coming in the larger projects, but in residential part, I think it can be done more. And I will request Ruchir to share his thoughts from his.
Oh yeah, he will do that. He will do that once we go there. So. Yeah. My takeaway is something like this, that we need to start with our young engineers. If we want to go ahead with reasonable or fast speed in future, first of all, train our engineers to start using this material properly or understand this material properly. That is a key takeaway from you, Siddharth, as far as the roadmap is concerned.
Sunil, one more point. It is not only that entire concrete is bad or entire only steel can. We need hybrid of both. We have seen the steel column filled with concrete. They can give the best solution kind of thing in certain applications. Yeah. So it has to be in the combination of both, and it should be an optimized solution. I'm not saying one me versus others. I think we have to see, and this liberty should be taken by the designer. He should be aware of the various choices available to him and what is the best optimum solution for his client.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Siddharth.
Thank you.
Dr. Tapan Chaudhary, now it is your turn to guide the new generation how to use structural steel responsibly as well as giving boost to the economy.
You just see, I think thanks Dr. Rao and Siddharth and all the other panelists. You just see that problem is known, okay? And the good part of this, the whole thing is that we know the left-hand side of the problem. So now there is a road and we know where to go. So now these are already defined. So it is easy for us. What I suggest that, that more and more digitalization and the technology orientations needs to be brought into not only from the all aspect of the project. Not from the, because when you evaluate, sometimes you evaluate single solutions, a single point. No, do not evaluate it. Evaluate in the whole project life cycle at one go. And that is only possible if you really, what Ruchir was telling, that beam was, I think beam has been invented in 1960s. True. Even today, the government, there is no ruling that in all the government project, beam is a mandatory. Then Axel will show off where the project is going.
Right.
So question is that how you can adopt the digital method of project implementations can be one of the point to be in the roadmap, so that everything will show up to everybody and there is a total transparency in the whole process. So that actually we should build into the mindset of the engineers and the architects as a goal, so that we can be really use the steel as a base for the case. Yes, all the other energy consumption and everything, micro turbine I can for Ruchir. Yes, we are using micro turbine at large in most of the Tata Steel works. So those are only information, and I think they are the one of the most energy efficient plant we are running, but those are apart from this. But when we build for the future, let us build for the future with digital as a mindset for executing the projects.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, Dr. Chaudhary. Now we go to, before we go to Ruchir with his thought, for his, to understand his thoughts, we need to understand from Mr. Kannan that from finance or from organizational point of view, from business point of view, what are the things you think are very, very important and which should be a part of our roadmap for structural steel? So please elaborate on that. I think you are on mute.
So basically, now there are many advanced technologies available around the world. So the first task will be to identify such technologies. And second is R&D. Already I know R&D companies have started incurring a lot of expenditure, but there should be increased focus on R&D. Even the presentation by all the other 4 panelists emphasized on innovation. So the best products, the best practices around the world, they should be captured, one. Second is this, there should be increased focus on R&D. And third is that the roadmap, you can express the vision of this body in terms of what is the kind of volume you want to look at in the next 10 years, and in terms of quality, where you want to be. So you can create vision statements which can guide not only the association but also the members of the association. And like it was emphasized, the collaboration with all the stakeholders. It was emphasized by all the other panelists. I didn't talk about it. So working very closely with the ecosystem will certainly help the members of the association to make big achievements. Thank you.
We take your point and we suggest SSMB. Today we have we are having the first round of such kind of discussion. So if SSMB could come forward and form a panel in order to make an appropriate roadmap for the structural steel industry, where these experts will guide not only the academia, but also the industry, also the designers, also they go to the authorities for certain concessions, or they seek some reduction in the interest rates and all those things. Such kind of initiative we can take, is it not?
Yeah. Yes, yes.
Right. So, so you are saying that rather than just talking about roadmap, let us make a movement and move forward with few people to start with, and then let it become a movement for structural steel in future. Am I right?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. You have to involve all the stakeholders.
Absolutely. Ruchir, now we come to you, and then once you are done, if you have got any questions to anybody, you can take up those questions for any of
Dr. Godbole, I have to be in another meeting. If you can
no
just
problem,
excuse
sir.
me.
No problem,
Thank
sir.
you.
Let us hear from Ruchir, and then you may go to other meetings, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Ruchir.
Oh, thank you so much. I have the last word.
Yeah. You're the expert.
Not really.
Because the process starts from you, Ruchir. That is why you have the last word. You are the designer. So whenever a customer comes, you are the first in the chain. So it is better that we conclude with your thoughts.
True. So just, simply put, for a roadmap, you need origin and destination. So origin is, of course, where you are, where our current location is. We've already identified that. And we know the challenges that face us immediately. So we need to invest, of course, the first immediate thing is to how to overcome those challenges, be what they may be. And for every individual agency, stakeholder, it'll be different. And for various industries, it'll be different. For steel manufacturers, it'll be different. Fabricators, it'll be different. It'll be all of that. So they can identify it, and nobody really needs to, discuss and get into that in detail. But the most important part is identifying what is immediately there, which is what's there in our presentations. We know what the government is intending to do. We know where the world is heading. We know, what our requirements will be in the next 4 to 5 years. And that 4 to 5 year horizon is good enough, because it is going to then guide what we do in these next 5 years will become the basis of the next 5 and the next 5, right? Which was the logic of every 5-year plan. Unfortunately, it just fell asunder. So there was, what you really need is the continuum to every process that you implement. So what I feel now is that once we've identified, we know what's the need. There are metro stations, there are highway projects, there are large, rail networks, there are dedicated freight corridors, there's warehousing, there's airports. So you already know. And the industry now needs to identify, okay, this is the segment or this is the sector I want to focus on. And then engage whoever they feel from all the stakeholders, be it consultants, manufacturers, fabricators, whoever, engage them and start building on solution finding. And that is what I liked about Siddharth's focus. He was talking about providing solutions, and Tata Steels really has been focusing on solution finding. So, and I had the opportunity a couple of years ago, along with you, Sunil, when we went to Manesar for the Tata Steel Tubes event. And, I was very happy to see how they partner with everybody right across the breadth of length and breadth of the country. And they're putting stakeholders. So my next thing is, please, while you are focused on what you want to do, engage the entire ecosystem. Don't, what happens is the large performers or the large entities do not assist the medium level entities. They do not assist the small scale entities. That ecosystem cannot survive without any of these. You need the small scale guys, you need the medium scale guys, and then you need the large performers. The problem with Indian manufacturing in almost all sectors, and it's not an accident in the Indian steel sector, is if you're talking about the fabrication quality, well, there's no training and whatever being done to the fitters and welders. And those guys are the small scale guys who have no connection with the medium guys, who have access, who have, they have the codes, they have the processes. So what happens is the engagement is not there. So strengthen the ecosystem while you do everything. And of course, you don't make sustainability a goal. It's not a goal. It has to be a culture. It has to be inherent in the way you do things. If you live sustainably, you don't have to do anything to clean up the environment. You don't have to do any sustainable activity. It's not a CSR. I mean, CSR also, I have a different take, but this is not the platform for that. But I'm saying sustainability has got to be inherent in everything you do, the way you do it. So every thought process, every innovative thought or activity has to have at the core, it has to be sustainable. If it is not sustainable, please drop it. Don't go ahead with it just because you find that there is a financial opportunity to be taken advantage of. It's going to be a short-term financial gain, and it's going to hurt you in the long run.
Agreed. Would you like to take a few more questions, or would you like to ask Ruchir some questions to the panelists?
I wanted to specifically answer one of the questions from Krishnakant, Mr. Yes. Krishnakant Rani, who addressed it to me. He's talking about a high level of social acceptance of concrete buildings in residential sector. How do we change or shift it to steel as a material which is what you asked Siddharth, and Siddharth explained it from his perspective. I want to say is, materials have to be looked at in terms of, again, their ecologic aspect of it. It's not everywhere that concrete is the right material, and it's not everywhere where steel is the right material. And hybrid, again, there has to be a reason, very strong reason for why you're using hybrid. So if that hybrid is going to make better sense, then you do hybrid or composite, depending on what. And composite and hybrid are different. So what I find most, post 9/11, all buildings in US now have a code where they have to have at least a meter thick concrete core, because everything in steel made the whole building collapse. But concrete in itself inherently is a fire retardant material. So if you have a core in concrete, only the external shell would probably collapse and the rest of the structure would still remain. There'll be a lot less of life, lot lesser loss of life. But I'm not in favor of these, knee-jerk reactions and short-term solution finding. I think there has to be an appropriate solution. The appropriate solution, again, comes asking from the most basic questions: sustainable lifestyle, a healthier environment, efficient manufacturing, construction processes, and the least amount of residual waste. Now, these are very easily said, not at all done. In most cases, very little done, and in many cases, not at all done. So this is where you need to go. And while there is a social acceptance to concrete, I know of a case where Maivan construction was done in Ahmedabad for flats where towers were 23, 24 stories. And for Ahmedabad, it was a tall structure and high-rise building. And people would walk in, at the end of a work day at 6 p.m. to baking ovens, because that concrete used to radiate so much of heat inside. So while we've adopted one part, which is very quick, speedy construction of concrete structures, we left out the insulation part, why? Because it was obviously costlier. So whereas Ahmedabad has typically had cavity wall constructions right since donkey's years, and all the stalwarts of architects and engineers have been following that. So there is certain logic which has to be applied to any new technology, be it steel, be it concrete, be it anything. So steel, yes, off-site volumetric construction work, which Dr. Tapan Chaudhary had showcased in one of his slides, that's the Hilton Hotel, which was done in 120, 130 days. And it's literally like Lego boxes put together. But everything was tested, the environment, the internal air quality environment, and everything right from services were built into every unit, and it was modularly like Lego pieces brought to site and just connected. So in that, what should be the base build material? Yes, you can have light gauge, high strength steel, shape form truss framework for the outside box. Internal partitions can be whatever lightweight construction you want, which is conducive for you. And external construction should be skins or materials which require to be such that they shield you from the harsher aspects of the environment, as well as permit the one beneficial part.
I've got the final warning from the organizers, Ruchir, that we have run over too much. So we had a fantastic session today with all these experts coming from different backgrounds, Siddharth. And one interesting comment has come in the box, that continuity beyond such type of discussions must happen in future. I'll put it across to Avneet that what we can do through SSMB, but from Tata Steel side also, you can discuss this with your chief executive or your managing director. And then if it can be a joint effort, myself, Ruchir, and I believe that Dr. Rao also would be interested in joining such type of initiative where we think at least for next 5 years to 10 years, as far as the steel industry is concerned. What do you suggest, Dr. Chaudhary? Should we not take this forward? Let it not remain as a discussion.
No, we should take this type of discussion forward, because actually it also enlighten the overall social community, which is the need of the hour.
Correct. Otherwise, what happens normally, we discuss, we take our dinner and we go to sleep. Next morning, next issue, something else.
Absolutely.
I think that should not happen. And I believe that Siddharth, you can take up this from your side. I'll take up from my side, discuss with Avneet, and we can have a kind of a consortium having variety of experts in it. And then we really make a good roadmap for structural steel industry. Siddharth.
Yeah, Mr. Godbole, I think that's a great idea, because I think going ahead, there is so much to be discussed in terms of setting a roadmap. I mean, this discussion is certainly not enough time to take this forward. So I'm all for it in terms of trying to build in, how we can actually get all the stakeholders. I mean, it's all coming down to engaging all the stakeholders. I mean, I've just take 10 seconds here to just say that yes, perhaps we need to also bring in the social sector here. In most of our industry seminars which I have attended, we normally never have social sector coming in and giving their thoughts on this. So we need to bring in those aspects also, because that then gives you a clear idea. Thank you.
Can I?
Yes, Siddharth, go ahead, please. I mean, we are eager to hear from you.
Oh, thank you very much. I think it has been a very fascinating conversation and engagement with all of you. So two things, I think maybe Sunil, you are not aware, but we have this program called Notions of Nations, I think, where we have over 700 architects. This is the open initiative of Tata Steel, is taken by Tube Division, which is open to all architects, engineers, and we invite them. And we invite them to come out with their any idea on anything which they want to design. And it's running for last 5-6 years, and we have been able to do some fantastic work and engaging with the wider community. The second issue, what Dr. Rao mentioned, I think Dr. Rao, we have this initiative and platform called Samvad. Samvad is a platform where we invite tribal leaders, tribal people from not only from Jharkhand or Odisha, but from all over the country and world. It's an annual event in Tata Steel Jamshedpur. We invite all the stakeholders, NGOs, the tribal people, they come, and social sector people, and we have conversation with them. And on real issues, just to give example, to get a mines approval, you have to get clearance from the local people. Unless they allow you, you can't. These are the government laws. So we have been working with these initiatives, but we are very happy if Avneet and if we can do anything more to improve and increase the awareness and involving the ecosystem, we will be very happy to partner. But thank you very much for your suggestion.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Ruchi. Thank you, Dr. Chaudhary. I think Mr. Kannan has already left. Thank you, Dr. Rao. It was a wonderful time we had with all of you. Thank you, Siddharth. Thanks a lot. Carol, we are done now.
Sure. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I take this opportunity to thank the moderator and our panelists for lending your precious time to us, for making this discussion such an interesting one and engaging one. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you all the attendees. Without you, it wouldn't have been possible. Thank you everyone for joining us today for the entire day. We'll see you at our SCS Ahmedabad event. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.